So while we're waiting for the piece to clean itself up there in the pickle, we are going to make a similar bail as we did on the beginner piece with a little bit of a twist. So we have this round ring here, and we only did a partial circle. The reason I only did a partial circle in the beginner project is that I did not want you to have to worry with meeting that circle, making sure it was round, fusing the ends together, and worrying with that. So I wanted to show you that even at a beginner level that you can do a partial ring and fuse it on the back and have a bail. So what we're going to do on this one, we're going to make a complete ring, but then we're going to make smaller rings, 2 of them, and we're going to loop them through here, 2 small rings, and then use that as our bail portion. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to take our square wire, the exact same square wire that we've been using for this project. I'm going to take my bail pliers, and I'm going to make one, actually I think I'm going to make all 3 rings with the larger one. I think that'll be fine. And you're just going to pinch it here. Make sure that that square wire is flush up against those bail pliers, and you want 3 complete rings. So now we've got 2 complete rings, and that's starting to turn on me, so I'm going to adjust it. Okay, so now I have 3 complete rings. I'm just going to snip this loose, and I'm going to use my jeweler's saw to saw those rings apart. I'm going to go through the lubrication one time, and I'm going to hold this right over this little notch I have. That way I have as much of it on the bench pin as I can possibly have, but I've still got a little bit of room to saw. Top one should be about off. Yep. And I'm glad because it was poking my finger. You will notice cutting these jump rings that I do have my saw at a slight tilt. That is because I want to cut the rings, the top one first, then the next one. It is a slight tilt, and as I'm going down, I am cutting on all of the rings, but with that tilt, it's going to work its way down so that it cuts the top one before it cuts in the one underneath it. Or I should say cuts it completely loose. And then you will feel when you've cut all the way through. Now there are a few ways that we can attach these to our piece. We are going to close. So the different ways that we can do it, and this is simply preference. So these 2 rings are going to go on here. So we could go ahead and put them on there and leave them at that, and then close this one up. And we could solder them all 3. We don't have to solder the 2 closed, or we could go ahead, not solder, excuse me, we could fuse them. We could go ahead and fuse just one, place it on the piece, fuse or solder it on the piece. Then open these unsoldered ones, put them through there, and then solder them closed. So there are multiple ways to do it. If you are not good at soldering and pick soldering rings, and you're kind of at the end right here because we've had so much granulation and everything, by all means, with square wire, this is going to be sturdy, and you don't need to fuse or solder it at all. But let's just go ahead and take it that next step and make sure that we've got it as professional as we can, because those seams will show, even though they're going to be sturdy and they're not going to come apart because they are square. Let's go ahead and solder them. But I only want to solder one, or fuse one to begin with. It is going to be the one that goes on the back of the pendant. Then we will put the other, we'll leave these two unsoldered and unfused. Then once we have this on the pendant, then we will open these up, put them through, and we will pick solder them closed. So for now, I've got to flux that little guy. Anytime we're joining the metal, we have to flux it. I'm going to put him right there on that little spot. I am going to switch back to my smaller tip. And we're just going to go around and around, and then the same stages will happen on this little guy, but they'll happen a little bit faster than our big piece. But we're in the dirty flux stage, now we're in the shiny, and now it's getting wet, and alright, so he is fused. So I've just gotten my piece out of the pickle. And let me look closely, see if I have any missing granules. Do not have any missing granules. That's good. I do have a few that move just a slight bit, and that happens. But this is handmade jewelry, and I want to encourage you that it needs to look handmade. If it was to be if it was to look like machine made, then it should be made by machine. The more granulation you do, the better you will get at it. Since we're simply going to put him right back in the flux and put him on the piece, we don't need to pickle him. The pickle is to remove, for argentium, the pickle is to remove the flux, and since it doesn't develop fire scale, now pickle can't get rid of fire stain on sterling, but it can remove some fire scale. So we have our piece flux. Now let me see, I want to make sure. Okay, so this is the top, or what I want to be the top. I'm going to get a few of my titanium strips. I love these. I don't know that even it'll need two. Now I'm going to adjust it just to make sure. I don't want a lot over the top. But I am going to make sure that it's in the center, and it is not. I love to be real with you guys. I could do a perfectly polished video, but I think it's more important that you see a real jeweler doing it exactly as they do. This is the first time I've made this project, and you're getting to see me make it and design it. And now I've designed it and built it in my head 1,000 times, but it is definitely the first time that making it. And I love for you guys to see the real raw process. I think that's worth more to you than a slick polished video would be. Now the ring is, it got hotter quicker and it got red. So I moved my torch away. I've got to heat the back plate. I have to get it as hot as the ring or they will not fuse. And if I were to continue to focus up there right on the ring, it would melt and never fuse. One of the reasons that we heat the entire piece when we're fusing is that this portion back here, if it remained cool, it would draw the heat in that direction and it would never get up to temperature. So we need to heat the entire thing so part of it does not add as a heat sink to the remainder of the piece. I'm pointing my flame straight down and bathing the entire thing in that bushy flame. Now I can see that the back plate is getting that shiny look just like the ring. So now I'm going to start watching for that flash and the white line where they meet. You will notice that this is taking longer than the granulation because I didn't replace this smaller tip with my larger one. Okay. And yes, I do see the white line. And again, we're going to have to let that cool. And then we're going to have to repickle. Then we will separate these. We will put them through the bale and we will pick solder them closed. Okay, so now we have our the bail that anchors to the pendant, and now we need to open these two rings enough to slide them onto here, and then now we'll close it up. And again, let me encourage you that if you do not want to solder these closed, you do not have to. We're going to have that. I need to flux it. Now I want to pull them apart. So if you don't have a third hand, you can cut a groove into your block and rest your jump ring in it. So I've got one there and one there. Make sure I have the seam where I want it. I'm just going to use easy solder for this. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple more than what I'm going to need out, because sometimes you need more and you don't want to have to stop and go get it. I'm going to put my solder on my charcoal block. Probably would have been smart to have done that before I lit my torch. I'm going to heat the solder into a ball. And then I'm going to pick it up with my pick. My pick wasn't warm enough. Okay, now I have my solder. Whoops. Don't accidentally turn your torch off. So I'm heating the ring, and I'm keeping my solder close so it will stay warm. And then as soon as I believe that this is hot enough, I'm going to set that there, and then that solder flows. Okay. I'm going to heat the next one. Of course, since I'm videoing, it's taking me longer. Actually, I'm probably struggling because it's easy solder. There just is something about it. Okay, so what happened there was that easy solder kept falling off my pick, and I could see that the ring was heating up to fusing stage, so I just went ahead and fused that ring closed. So we are done except for a good cleanup. I'm going to pickle it really, really well, and then I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to scrub it with a brush, brass bristled brush and my Dawn, and then I'm going to take my little wheels and I'm going to go over it really well. You may want to re-sand the outside rim. There may have been some reticulation. If you see that your silver or your piece looks a little rough, that may be because it pulled the pure silver up a little bit to the surface. You just simply sand that back down. You've done nothing wrong. And then we'll put the patina on there. Okay, so I have it out of the pickle, and I've given it a good cleaning. I did do a quick little sand run around the edges, and it's beautiful that way, but we won't see all the detail until we have put our patina on there. Now again, I'm using Black Max, and I'm just going to paint it on there. And then once I've painted it on there, I'll rinse it really good. And then once I've rinsed it, we will knock back those the patina off the high places. And then I believe it'll just literally come to life. Now you could use liver of sulfur. That's certainly a good option. For your liver of sulfur, please remember that you need to heat your water very, very warm, incredibly warm. And then put your liver of sulfur in it, then put your piece in it until it's as dark as you need it. Now I am not going to go ahead and do the back, because once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and polish it bright anyway. So I am good with that. Now I'm going to go rinse it, and then I'll be back and we will knock the highlights off. Okay, so I've gone and I've rinsed it. Now this time, instead of using a steel wool, because steel wool would get way down in there, I just want to take the highlights off of the wires and the granulation. So I'm using a Scotch-Brite pad. Now, of course, it is attached to the sponge, but that's irrelevant. But actually, it helps me with my purpose to stabilize it, so it gives me a nice flat surface. And you can see, as I'm buffing this off, how that comes to life. It stays on top. I'm going to look at the edges. Now, I noticed when I went in there to rinse it, the Black Max did not get completely on the edges, but that's okay, because I knew I was going to buff it off anyway. Brush as much or as little off of the rings as you want. And there you have it. Isn't that beautiful? Worth every bit of work. Now you can put a chain through here, or you can put a leather cord. There's no need to knot it, just run it through. And we're done. I can't wait to see your projects. Please post them for me, or send me in the email. Send me pictures of the projects you've completed. It would mean the world to me. Thank you very much.